Well, this week we have in the studio Mr. William Jasper, senior editor of the New American Magazine. We're here to discuss with him the Rio+20, the United Nations conference in Rio de Janeiro, where they're going to be giving us some more environmental laws. Welcome to the studio, Bill. How are you?
Thanks, Art. Great. Thanks.
So what's your take on this meeting that's coming up?
Well, as you know, I was in Rio 20 years ago for the first Earth Summit for the New American Magazine, covering it there. And now, 20 years later, here they've come back, and so we have a crew down there in Rio. Alex Newman, who our readers are familiar with, writes online and in the magazine.
Frequently. And
we have 2 cameramen down there, and so we are going to be broadcasting from there for the New American daily broadcasts, and I'm going to be up here this time running much of the logistics from up here. So there's a lot going on that hasn't really hit the news yet. The real big news coverage is probably going to start on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's when the Secretaries of State and then on Thursday heads of state are going to be arriving in Rio. And it's going to be very important because they're going to be pushing at this conference for moving forward on several major areas, one being Agenda 21, the great big master plan for total enviro-regimentation of virtually all human activity everywhere on Earth. But there are a number of other lesser-known issues that are coming up. They're really going to be pushing for carbon accounting. The whole climate change thing has been downplayed at the UN summit thus far because of ClimateGate and other scandals.
Well, what you used the phrase carbon counting. Maybe you want to explain that a little bit.
Yes, well, in the last several years, the whole issue of carbon footprints and carbon CO2 emissions and carbon trade issues have become more commonplace, but it's still kind of a foggy notion. A lot of people don't realize what that is. And there are all kinds of different definitions of it by different government agencies and different environmental groups. But the basic premise of it is that Americans especially who are being targeted by it, and we're at the first Earth Summit. Maurice Strong, who was the Secretary General of the first Earth Summit, began the summit even months before it started by attacking American middle-class lifestyles because we were consuming too much, we were causing too much pollution, and that's where this carbon accounting comes in. Carbon dioxide has been declared, carbon dioxide, which is a natural gas that is actually essential for life on Earth, has been declared a pollutant by the UN and by the Environmental Protection Agency. And so they are saying that, and since every time we breathe, we're putting out carbon dioxide, we are leaving a carbon footprint. Of course, every time we burn any gas, anytime we start a fire, we're contributing to this carbon dioxide, our carbon footprint. And they're saying this is causing global warming or climate change. And so the UN wants to see this human activity all put under control, which really means that every breath you take, every move you make, they want to be watching and monitoring you and making sure that you're not emitting too much carbon dioxide.
Well, didn't the University of Arizona some years back prove that more carbon dioxide was actually good for the environment?
Well, yeah, and not just them, but a number of different scientific studies have been done all over the world and show that actually the carbon dioxide increase that we've experienced over the last several hundred years has been beneficial. It's caused more plant growth. That's why when you go into greenhouses, you see they have CO2 cartridges there. In greenhouses, they're putting more CO2. The plant, it's a fertilizer. The plants take it in and grow better. And so a CO2-starved global environment would be a human-starved environment because animals and human beings need plants, and plants need CO2.
Now I understand why talking to plants works. You're actually giving them more carbon dioxide.
That's right.
It's your bad breath that makes them grow.
So that's one of the key issues. So what they want to do is to create carbon accounting so that the carbon cost would be factored into every product, and the UN or other national and regional agencies would put a carbon tax on everything based on the carbon that it takes to, or carbon dioxide that it takes to produce that item. So it's a monstrously huge bureaucracy that they're proposing, very costly, and that's just a small part of it. The UN Summit has a whole series of documents that they are working on, and they have a large group of business and NGOs, non-governmental organizations, that have prepared studies ahead of time that are all pushing for these big items. For instance, they call it, one of them is called the green economy, which includes the carbon accounting, but it includes also making more government-provided, quote-unquote, green jobs. That is, pushing for more government cylinders, you know, the solar-powered, government-financed company that went bankrupt, and that is just one of many government-provided green projects that have gone.
Well, when you think about the tremendous types of monitoring that would have to be done, and how many people they would have to employ, right down into the neighborhood in order to enforce something like that.
Well, exactly. That's what you would have. Right now, you know, in many areas, the difficulty and the aggravation that one has when trying to get a permit to build a fence or do anything on your home. With this, you're going to have virtually everything you do being second-guessed or even first-guessed, because you're not going to be able to do it until you get a permit from some environmental quality.
Well, that also, you have to think about trying to start a new business, produce a new product, or anything of that nature that might be beneficial. Then they're going to go through an awful lot of hoops in order to comply with these regulations. It may be too punitive, too expensive for them to even start up.
Absolutely, that's already the case. Many studies have shown that the businesses that just haven't come into being because they can't get through that hurdle, the regulatory hurdle there, it's a real bottleneck. And if we increase it, this is just going to be more of a problem in terms of creating new businesses, creating new jobs. So the unemployment picture is not going to be helped by this at all.
Well, just sitting here thinking about this logically, certainly they must think the same. I mean, they're not dumb, they're not stupid, they're not ignorant people. Why would they want to do this?
Well, very clearly they want to de-industrialize. It's very clear in most of the documents. You know, when I went to the original Earth Summit, the big issue that came out was Agenda 21. Didn't get a whole lot of coverage at that time. It was, at that time, the ozone depletion and the deforestation that got most of the coverage. Agenda 21, this is one of the newer versions of it that have been published. This one was actually published in 1993. Now it's come out in a smaller book form. But when I brought it back from Rio de Janeiro, it was about 5 times this thickness because it was printed as it had been printed out there in the dailies in Rio de Janeiro. And at that time, I went around on a nationwide speaking tour and talk shows. And I would bring up the issue of Agenda 21, and they hadn't really heard of it. And so I started explaining what it was going to do and reading from it. And here's the response I would get from even sympathetic, friendly, conservative talk shows. Mr. Jasper, you're getting a lot of concern over something that's never going to happen. That would never happen. That's just a bunch of pie-in-the-sky, dreamy UN bureaucrats. That's never going to happen. Well, it's 20 years later, and of course we know in communities all across the United States, Agenda 21 is being implemented. And that is going to be now the big step forward they want to do at this conference here.
Well, we do know that if they tried to do this in one step, it would never happen. And that's the problem most of these people have. As we all know, they do it in incremental steps, a salami slice, as they say, at a time, so that you make one step, people get used to it, then they make another step, and then you look behind and you've got what you said 20 years ago would never happen. So it makes us fearful of what's going to come out of this conference in Rio this time.
Well, it is something that's why we have a crew down there. This is going to be very important, and the programs that they have lined up that they want to pass would be extremely destructive of our economy and of our freedom. I mean, what they want to do is get the United States to agree to some of these compacts and agreements. And then every time Congress or the administration balks at something, at moving forward because the political price is going to be too high to pay, they'll say, you agreed at Rio, you signed on the line, the whole world is watching, we can't upset the whole apple cart, we agreed to this. And so they'll try to use then that so-called moral pressure to push us forward on this.
Well, certainly our leaders, you would think, would say America first. I mean, after all, we elect them, we pay them through our tax money, and that sort of thing. Are there connections between these people and these internationalists, or what exactly is going on here?
The most important thing, of course, is that all of our elected and top appointed officials have taken an oath to uphold and defend our Constitution. Yeah. That's why they're supposedly serving there. Virtually all of this program is completely antithetical to and hostile to our form of government and to the Constitution. So by supporting these programs, they're really violating their oath. They are incrementally destroying our national sovereignty, our independence, and the Constitution. So yes, many of the top people who are political leaders, business leaders, financial banking leaders, NGO leaders who are from the United States and from many of these other countries are globalists. They're one-worlders. They believe in moving toward world government. Some of them believe in it completely. They want to see a total world government. They call it global governance because they know the term world government spooks a lot of people. Big government is oppressive, and world government would be the biggest government we've ever had. And so most people don't want to move toward world government. So they are working incrementally here, some of them with full knowledge, some of them with partial knowledge about where this is going. But it's very clear, and we're going to be covering a lot of the different issues there and who are the movers and shakers, what is their program. So it's going to be a very interesting week.
Well, thank you for coming in. We're looking forward to this, at least from the standpoint of learning about what's going on. And then the next step, of course, is to do something about it. Thanks again, Bill.
My pleasure.